So we have Dr. Cowan, Mr. Cialino, who are here this morning on behalf of the ERB. Good morning, and the floor is yours.
Good morning. I'm sorry, Councilman, are you waiting for me?
We are, yes.
Okay, apologies.
No sweat.
So I'm Michael Cowan, the chair of the Ethics Review Board, here to meet with you about the 2021 budget. I think that probably what I should speak about, at least briefly, is the significant problems in the Inspector General's office that have come to light recently. The short version of that is that in April or early May, 2 employees of the office came to me with complaints that the Inspector General was not showing up for work and was not available to deal with things like signing reports and so forth. I spent some hours talking with each of them, judged that they were credible and didn't have an agenda other than to bring this to the board's attention. So I went to the executive committee of the board, presented what I had discovered there, and the board asked Mr. Cialino to interview most of the staff, really. I think it was 10 or 11 people that he interviewed, and all of them said basically the same thing, that the Inspector General had been coming to work a day or 2 a week is the typical response that we got, and that there was no indication that he was doing anything from home to offset that. And in case somebody's wondering, this was before, it goes back 2.5 years, so it was well before COVID. I met with him. He agreed to resign at the end of last month. I appointed as chair an interim Inspector General. That's Mr. Michel, who you met with, I think, recently. And we're laying the groundwork for a search. We started yesterday with a process to identify a firm to help us on this. And that would be the update from my point of view. Dane, you might want to add, feel free if you have anything to add.
No, and I think that leads into the budget discussion, because one of the bigger items that we have, our budget is very small, but this year or the upcoming year, we are gonna have to spend at least $50,000 probably to conduct a search for the new Inspector General, and so I think that's a good lead into the budget.
Can I ask this question as you start off, and I appreciate the position that you all had to take and the difficulty of trying to gather all the facts before rushing to a judgment and getting to a place. I think one of the things that we would be interested also in as a council is also helping ERB prevent something like this from happening again, and what does that look like? And so obviously I know the members of the board, their council, are concerned not only with the issue you raised, but also about modeling efficiency and productivity. And what does that look like on a going forward basis, so that we don't all run into this 2 years from now? I think Councilmember Williams says this all the time, that government has a life that's much longer than politicians. And so what are we doing to sort of ensure that that the behavior that we've seen, while it seems like it's one-off, maybe is changed through regulations or codification, to ensure that there's more robust reporting by the OIG to the public primarily, but also I think to the city, given the funds that are being spent and the importance of the office.
I appreciate the question. It's a timely one, obviously. As context for it, for my response, let me say this. I was involved with the council members and civic leaders in 2006 who drew up the ordinances, the legislation to set up this office. And our primary concern was protecting the office from outside political interference. And we were lasered into that as a focus. It simply didn't occur to us that a future inspector general might use that structure that we built to do what's happened here. So clearly we need to, nothing like this has happened before. And clearly we need to look at what sort of line of sight the Ethics Review Board has to the operations of the office without interfering with their operations. So we're considering all possibilities and have a meeting scheduled with Government Affairs before long to begin a conversation with the council about that. And we're open. We think it's necessary.
Well, and you make a good point, Dr. Cowan, which is autonomy is the primary focus that you have to have, and who could have foreseen the abuse of autonomy that happened in this situation. So how do you balance both autonomy with ensuring that the public goals are being met, and doing so in a way that either doesn't chase off an IG or make things unpredictable or place too great of a burden on them. But what I'm saying also is I know you have a number of council members who would love to be partners with you in that exercise. And as you took time to examine what a best practice would be, I think we need to take the time collectively to figure out where we can strike that right balance between making sure that you have somebody who can act as an independent inspector general, but at the same time ensuring that work is being done, the morale in the office is being met too.
Let me, Councilman, I appreciate that, and we would want to do that collaboratively, of course, with the council. Here's an example of what strikes me as suggesting a fix. I asked a number of people why members of the OIG staff did not come to the board sooner, like a year ago or 2 years ago. And the answer was the same. They were in fear of their jobs. We looked at the whistleblower provision, and it didn't, Dane, you may want to comment on this, but it didn't seem like it offered the kind of help that these people needed. So one of the things I think we need to do is figure out a mechanism for an employee to speak with someone on speak with the Ethics Review Board when they have a concern.
Yeah, and that really could be something that would be available, kind of increasing whistleblower protections, not only for members of the OIG and Independent Police Monitor who are directly supervised by the ERB, but city government more broadly, perhaps, that if people see a problem, they should report it and have some protection from reprisal. One of the kind of larger projects that the ERB is looking at is what can the ERB do about ethics violations? And under the present code, it's not very much. And protecting whistleblowers is one of the shortcomings, we think. So that is something that we'll obviously want to, if the council is interested in working with us on improving that sort of function. And that's only can be done by ordinance. And obviously that's where you guys would come in.
Yeah, I'm one voice, but I think given where we are, we would be interested in that. And I think as Dr. Cowan said, we want it to be a collaborative process, because we don't want to foist anything on the ERB that is impractical. And I think there is also sensitivity to what you said about the work done back in 2006. in that you want to make sure you have somebody who can operate fairly and outside, but at the same time ensuring that the employees feel like they have the adequate protections to speak up when it's necessary. So our doors will be open to having that conversation. Absolutely.
Councilman, if other members have questions on this, Dana and I would be glad to respond.
Yeah, I saw one pop up. Councilmember Palmer.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Mike, how are you?
Good. Kristen, how are you?
As you know, I first ran on this issue. Many of us did, post Katrina, when we're looking at how we reform every aspect of city government. So, it's with great pause that this has all come to light. I just want to kind of get the timeline correct. You said that that members of the Inspector General's office did not come to you until this May, or was it previous May?
No, it was this May.
It was this May. Okay, so you were able to somewhat take care of the situation within 5 months. When did he leave?
He left at the end of October.
Yeah, so about almost 6 months. But then did it not? I mean, the Ethics Review Board is primarily here to be like the checks and balances with the OIG, correct?
Right.
So
right.
Did it not give your agency pause that we were not receiving reports and there wasn't a work product?
Well, we actually were receiving reports, and there was a work product. Mr. Harper's first year was covered in a report to the board, second year covered in a report to the board. And the first one was completely unsatisfactory, and the board let him know that. The second one was a little better, but you could only call it minimal, in my opinion. And now we see why it was so minimal because leadership had just never appeared under his tenure.
Okay. Well, I chair governmental affairs, and I know we would like to work with y'all as quickly as possible to make sure we can put safeguards in sooner rather than later, right? Because obviously you're going to want all of this ready to go for the next Inspector General that is selected. And so the increase in the budget, I'm assuming, is coming from for the search, correct?
Yes, that's obviously that's not a regular expense that we have.
Okay.
Right, but it's not an increase in the budget. It's just, it's going to be an expenditure this year that we don't typically have, and we expect it'll be around $50,000.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I think a lot of this is going to have to be more detailed out. We have to figure out solutions moving forward, because as you know, this had significant impact on our safety and permits office. And I think many of us have felt, including the administration, has felt very much at a loss because they've never been briefed, going into these situations. When a new administration came on board, nobody understood the extent of any kind of investigation. And I think that put a new administration behind the 8 ball. So, we really have to be careful that this cannot happen again. I think it's created situations that potentially, we don't know, could have been avoided, right?
Certainly.
All right, well, again, we would like to be able to put this on the Governmental Affairs Committee agenda sooner rather than later, so we can work towards something that's going to be beneficial as we move forward and before we hire a new Inspector General. I would also ask that prior to this meeting, maybe if we can do it in December, that you can get us or y'all can research some best practices from other Inspector General's offices in terms of whistleblower provisos and how other ethics review boards oversee the work, and if there's more clarity in holding them accountable.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. That's all I have, Joe.
I think we have a meeting scheduled, Council Member, with you.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Williams is on the line and he has a question. Councilmember? Jason,
Hello?
can you hear us? Yes.
Thank you very much. I wanted to hear just a discussion about whether or not there is a need for, in terms of just his absences and not showing up and not being present. It seemed as if the gentleman who presented were aware of him not being present, and I don't understand why that would not trigger something.
Councilman, as we talked to the staff and asked why did someone not come forward, the answer is they were in fear of losing their job.
So their appreciation of things was that Mr. Harper would retaliate if that was made aware.
Yes, that's right. In fact, when we were when our council was interviewing the staff about the situation there, we got word that Mr. Harper was questioning people about who had talked to the ERB and issuing threats that personnel actions would be forthcoming if he found out that anybody was doing that. So that just reinforced the feeling that people had, I think.
Well, that's very disheartening. I know it's disheartening for you guys as well. That the agency that we rely on to sort of catch these things has leadership that is engaged in destructive and fraudulent and wasteful behaviors. And is that your understanding about those positions not being filled as well?
Councilman, I'm a little unclear about, kind of the legal nuances, but so if I could just say it in layman's terms.
Okay.
He had a clear responsibility to staff up, and he had the funds to do it. And instead of that, he sent $1.5 million back to the city at the end of last year, and they're about to do that again this year. He left holes in his staff that were unnecessary, and as I understand it, that was strictly a matter of his behavior.
Got it. And I don't know if Mike, this is a better question for you or for Dane. And I don't have any idea what that answer is, and I would imagine it would fluctuate depending on jurisdictions and years greatly. But is there a best practice on turnaround time for a report? I think that probably is one of the most glaring things. Even, I guess, before any of us knew any of this was going on, even when we would hear reports, it would date back to times when the persons who were being investigated were not even were no longer staffed or responsible for that work. So it just felt as if the goal was to root out fraud and waste and abuse, it just would be more contemporaneous so that we could limit it. And I just don't know if there's an industry standard or a national best practice as relates to how long those reports should take.
Councilman, I did ask the auditing people in the OIG that question, and they said that generally, when all the information had been gathered, a report would be issued within a year.
I mean, and that's what I would think and hope as well. I just didn't know if that was if there was a national best practice with regard to that. And I guess the other question is, have either of you come to any conclusions on the confluence or intersection of different investigative agencies. One of the conversations that I had with Mr. Harper before this was revealed dealt with safety and permits, dealt with the issue that the U.S. Attorney's Office, possibly FBI, was involved, and what the role then becomes of the OIG if they referred it. Can they bring the mayor or the administration or the law department? Can they make them aware if they themselves are, what is that intersectionality? Because obviously there's a responsibility of leadership and administration to take swift action if someone is doing something improper or even worse, illegal. But there is a certain degree of protected information with regards to an ongoing criminal investigation. I just don't know if you all have any opinions about that, or if it's too soon.
Dane, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, and I think it really just depends on who the IG is, how much he or she likes to work with law enforcement. Ed Quatrevo referred a lot of matters for investigation to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office and state police. There was less of that with Mr. Harper, but there was less of everything with Mr. Harper. So, I do think that it's important for the IG to refer criminal matters out. They are not a criminal investigatory body or prosecutorial body, so they should refer out crimes. And I think Mr. Quatrevo did that. And I would expect in the interim with Mr. Michel, who is a former FBI agent, he will work cooperatively with the federal government and state and local law enforcement. So I think it just depends, and that's not a very good answer, but I think that's the best I can give you.
No, that it is a good answer, and I would hope that there would be referrals when criminal wrongdoing is uncovered. I guess my question is, does that then, once is there a policy, or should there be a policy about what information is also shared with an incoming mayor or the heads of departments with regards to preparing a transition and picking new leadership once a referral has occurred? Does that mean now the Inspector General is out of it and removed? I guess what is the duty and obligation to leadership in City Hall so that they can take appropriate action once they have properly referred something to the feds? I think that's the thing that's most confusing for me.
Councilman, I could say that we have had a crystal clear policy on that, starting really with Mr. Sarasoli, the first Inspector General, and it's as follows: that when evidence of criminal wrongdoing is found in an Inspector General's research investigation, that matter is brought to the appropriate legal authority, and then the Inspector General is out of it. And so the people who would be disclosing to government officials, if anybody, would either be the district attorney or the U.S. attorney.
Got it. That makes sense. And I guess my last question you may have just answered, and I may have missed this. What is your most aspirational timeline for getting new leadership in place?
I'm hopeful that we'll have someone by February.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. I did have one last thing about the.
You said last question already.
I'm a lawyer, Joe, so that means 5 to 10 more. I think is the rule. I'll try to make this one a little swifter. When the OIG opined, I guess, in that letter with the mayor and with the council about not getting involved, or pausing on the Hard Rock investigation. Do you see, and I'm just wondering if that was again just Mr. Harper coloring way outside of the lines, or what was that in sync with any policy that's in place?
That's the one where he warned that additional investigations could interfere with what he already had going.
Yes, sir.
I'm not aware of that reflecting a policy that was in place. Dane, do you have any other thought on that?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thanks so much, guys.
Sir, thank you,
Appreciate
Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Okay. So we'll move on to the budget now. Thank you for taking the time to answer those questions. We appreciate it. We'll get the presentation pulled up here for you.
I don't believe there are slides for this presentation.
Okay. All right. Well, then you want to just talk through it?
Dane, could you lead us through that, please?
Sure. I'm looking at page 90 of the proposed budget book, where the Ethics Review Board's budget is set forth. What it shows essentially is that our budget is almost entirely personnel. It is my salary, it is payments for our ethics trainer, and it will soon be payments for the professional services provider who's going to do the search. So that puts us with a proposed budget of $234,000 for personnel and $18,000 in other operating. The other operating really is virtually nothing. Last year we had an awards luncheon that we're not going to have this year because of COVID, and we've just got virtually no other expenses other than that. Since we don't have an office, we essentially work virtually, and so it shows just a reduction in the budget that is in our budget that is commensurate with the budget reductions elsewhere, and that's where we are.
Yeah, I saw that and I appreciate it. I think you answered the question of why the operating went down so much. That would have been the only macro issue. Thank you, Paul, for pulling that up. Yeah. But I think at the same time, making sure that there's a proper search and that it's well staffed as we go into hiring a new OIG makes all the sense in the world. Colleagues, any questions about the budget? All right, seeing none. We appreciate your time and also leading off with the discussion rather than having it just hang out there and addressing it in your candor and being forthright about it. And I think, as we've all said, based on the questions you were asked, we look forward to working in cooperation and collaboration with you on next steps and the good work that was started in 2006 and how we just continue to evolve it from here.
Thanks to everyone.
Thank you all very much. Take care.
Thanks, council members.
Thank you. All right. So as I said, working in reverse order, we'll go to the Office of Independent Police Monitor. I know, Susan, good to see you. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well, thank you.
Good morning. So the floor is yours.
All right. Well, just thank you to all council members for this invitation, and hopefully you can hear me okay. Every time I log into Zoom, it's a new adventure, so I always just like to check.
We can hear you just fine.
Thank you. Now, Paul, will you advance the slides for us, or do I share my screen?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks,
Um,
Paul.
So this is our gratuitous office shot, just so you can see what a good looking staff we have at the Office of the Independent Police Monitor. But also so I can put a face to the names. We have here today Bonsil Shokumbi, who is our chief monitor. She is all the way on the left at the front of the table there. She is in charge of looking at use of force incidents, in custody deaths, and incidents like what happened on the bridge on June 3rd. All the way to the right at the front of the table is Stella Cement. She is Deputy Police Monitor, and she is in charge of complaint intake, complaint reviews, and disciplinary hearings. And sitting behind her is Renee Livius, our office manager, and she's in charge of the money. She's the money lady. So all three of them are here today to join me in this presentation. So if you have any questions for us, we'll be ready to rock and roll. And Paul, can you go to the next one, please? We're going to go through our accomplishments and our goals, and then our budget for, what we spent this year, and of course, what we're going to, where we think we're going to spend next year. But I have to say, after listening to the OIG discussion, just a little jelly that Derry gave back 1.5 million. I wish he had asked me if I could have used any of that, because we sure could have. But we're the little office that could, so we've done a lot with a lot less. This year we lost our Bonsil is our acting chief monitor. We lost our chief monitor to the city of Dallas. She's now the first police monitor in the city of Dallas, Tanya McClary. So we've been down one body for the year, and we have way exceeded all of our numbers for the prior year. So want to just thank my team for a lot of great work. And can you go to the next one, Paul? That was an outreach event, I think a National Night Out from a couple years ago with Bonsil. Thank you. So we've been busy. We've achieved a lot of our goals this year. We've been involved in a lot of NOPD policy, thanks to the city council really flexing its muscles this year on police reform and criminal justice reform, and inviting our office to be a part of those conversations. We've been able to weigh in and been able to give feedback to our police department about their policies. And then we do that as well through the complaints that we take, through the crime victims that we interact with, to our 24-hour coverage of officer-involved shootings and other critical incidents. So our motto is always to be focused on our community. So we know that officer-involved shootings or other types of critical incidents are the most important incident to cover, because they have the power to move and to make changes, as we saw in Minneapolis this year. But also our second most important priority is to take complaints from our community. And we are up from what we took last year, even with a smaller team. So Stella and Abe Lowe, our complaint intake specialists, have just done a tremendous job this year in being able to be there for our community and hear their concerns. We've been engaged with NOPD about compliance with the federal consent decree. We were already using tools to critique them that came from a consent decree. I bought those tools with me from Los Angeles. So, and if you know anything about consent decrees, the Justice Department's remedies are pretty similar for most things like complaint intake or use of force investigation. So we were already doing that, but we've gone ahead and started working with NOPD to make sure that we're all on the same page about how we'll audit and review them as the consent decree plays out and comes to an end over the next few years. So that's been really good. And we're looking forward to having more of that relationship with NOPD. NOPD now has robust internal procedures for reviewing their own operations. They have the Professional Standards and Accountability Bureau, which does auditing and policies and helps with training. So they've just really changed a lot over these years, and it's been to the better. They have a more robust training academy that we're involved in, and their training committee. And then you have the Public Integrity Bureau, whom we interact with on a daily basis. And we work with to make sure that investigations are thorough, complete, and fair. So So this year we started, we want to talk about a couple of things that we started working on. And achievement number one was looking at two, what we think are important discussions about how we fund police and how police operate. And the first is the Police and Children Project, which is run by Deputy Police Monitor Stella Cement. And in that, we are developing data and interacting with those who advocate for children, the schools that deal with children, the police, just a number of organizations and agencies around the city to hear what they're saying about policing of children and to come up with robust recommendations to help NOPD to do better, but also to help you as decision makers decide if there needs to be a different response to children. Most children aren't committing serious crimes, as council's dashboard about what's going on in the city may show. So we know that kids need a different response. And so we want to be able to give that information to you as decision makers to decide what you'd like to do and perhaps respond differently. Similarly,
Can I ask a question here? Understanding the importance of trying to catalog and I think, certainly the second one in particular is highlighting the idea that people need things outside a police officer can offer, right? For somebody who has mental health issues.
Yes, sir.
Other, I know NOPD is trying to get social workers, other departments are doing similar things. With the stakeholders involved, are you all also talking to victims as well about their interaction too, and making sure as you're painting this holistic picture that it's every single piece of the interaction?
Yes, sir, we are. Now, that mental health project is just now kicking off, but I do want to say we have a mental health epidemiologist leading that. So we're going to gather the data. We're going to talk to everybody in site. And in fact, we're lining up NOPD's crisis unit, talk to them because they're going to actually be able to give us a whole lot of interactions there. So yes, we are speaking to everybody. And if I can ask Deputy Police Monitor Stella Cement to join in here. Stella, is there anything you want to add in about the Police and Children's Project and who you've spoken with? Because that project is moved down the road quite a bit.
Yes, hi, good morning. I'm Stella Cement. I'm the Deputy Independent Police Monitor, and I have the pleasure of managing our Children and Police Project, which is at a little bit of a further phase. And to answer your question, we are speaking with stakeholders from across the board. We have actually talked to City Council members, but we've also spoken to parent advocacy groups that work with different populations within the New Orleans community. We've also talked to individuals that work at schools where children are incarcerated. We've talked to individuals at our alternative model schools in New Orleans, a lot of community organizations, and we're in the process of setting up our first series of conversations with children who have been involved in the criminal justice system, who have had interactions with the NOPD, and have actually been arrested. And that series of conversations is going to happen differently than our other conversations with our organizational partners. So we're looking forward to kicking off that dialogue. But yes, we are going to be speaking to a various population of affected individuals who have had interactions with the police, with our criminal justice system, and we'll be able to bring that insight to ensure that everything that we're reporting out is comprehensive and holistic to all of the different perspectives that may be out there regarding how children and their families interact with the police. We're very happy with the feedback.
The reason why I ask is because one of the other things that we're hearing more about is restorative justice model. And that involves everybody at the table, right? It involves how the counseling process works, what the mediation looks like, but also it involves a dialogue or discussion between the person who committed the crime and the person who's affected by the crime. And so I just want to make sure as we're looking at all of this too, that the victim is clearly part of the equation as well. And as we're studying everything, that piece is baked in too, as part of having all of this discussion.
Yes, of course, we hear that perspective, and that is something that we are incorporating into our feedback forums.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we're
you.
super excited about these projects, and thank you for those good questions. We are experts in police accountability functions, such as internal affairs, auditing, that type of thing. But we know our community is are experts in exactly what you're talking about. I know that Troy Bechet does restorative practices out there with children. There's so many that are going to help guide this. What we want to do is bring folks together and put the data together and let our community just go with it. So we're looking forward to that. This is about our community. And Paul, can you go to the next one, please? So we've been dealing with our community quite a bit. When COVID popped up unceremoniously in March and just took us all down, we started interacting with a coalition of groups in the city around COVID policing. I know this council has weighed in on and will weigh in on summonses versus arrests, and that was really some of the first reasons that our community reached out and wanted to talk to us about those issues. And so we've been talking to them, providing data when we can, and listening to our community's concerns and relaying those with NOPD and bringing NOPD into the picture when possible. So that's some of the first things that we've been doing. We've done 2 different days, one in May and one in August, to look at body-worn camera to see if officers are wearing the PPE during their interactions with the communities. That should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. We're gonna just talking with NOPD about that, and that should be up as well. But that was a good interaction. The chief put out an order in May. We're checking to see how is compliance with that order, and that gives him good feedback about being able for him to lead his troops. So we're excited about being able to do that. With our budget growing as it has up until this year, that allowed us to bring on more people to do more work. So again, we're just a mighty little office, but getting a lot done. We've been involved in op-eds. We're just involved in this discussion about policing during the time of COVID. And Paul, can you go to the next one? As we mentioned previously, we are deeply involved, both Stella and Bonseal are deeply involved in the Crescent City Connection Bridge incident on June 3rd and the investigation into what occurred, that the use of tear gas, stingers, etc., how it was reported or not reported in a timely manner, supervision, all those issues that occurred surrounding that event. That's a huge time user for us. And we being down one person, that's been tough, but I do want to just give a lot of credit to both Stella and Bonseal for being able to stay on top of that. Building and community achievement 4, building and community partnerships. We work with Louisiana Fair Action Center. We've done some events with the ACLU. We were in a peace walk with NOPD on a couple of occasions. So we just, we're trying to be, wherever our community needs us, we try to be there. Achievement 5, this is something that's near and dear to our hearts. So since we got here, we have helped to support a group called Families Overcoming Injustice. And those are the family members or survivors of folks who have been killed by the NOPD over decades. And so that group, Families Overcoming Injustice, and Chief Monitor Bonseal Shokumbi helps to shepherd that group. Said they wanted to put in information into the NOPD's policies and procedures on how to better treat community when these events go down. And so they helped put together this Family Bill of Rights. Most of that has been, I believe, built into NOPD's policies and procedures. And I'm going to tag in Bonseal to talk about that a little bit. But this has been something that's been super important for us because this is completely community driven. Bonseal?
So Families Overcoming Injustice is a group of individuals who have the lived life experiences of losing loved ones to police brutality or violence, whether justified or not. And they put together a list of requests that they wanted to see made within NOPD policy. And what we have learned is since we started the request, some things have changed in NOPD policy, such as, well, not necessarily in policy, maybe possibly in practice, such as putting up a homicide screen when a loved one is deceased, or requesting a meeting to see the body-worn camera footage prior to the release to the press for the immediate family members. So I've been working with the Public Integrity Bureau to get all of these requests. It's about 20 different requests, varying from having support on the scene for an individual to making sure that individuals are updated throughout cases, things that traditionally happen if you're squarely fit into a homicide case or things of that nature. We're making sure all of these things exist in one document. And I think, honestly, probably before the end of the year, we should actually achieve this goal.
Thank you, Bonsu. And council members, this is super important to us. I want to tell you how this kind of came about. And I want to give full credit to Deputy Superintendent Arlinda Westbrook of the Public Integrity Bureau for this. She's a mother as well. And out in March of 2012, Wendell Allen's mother, Natasha Allen, found out that her son was shot and killed by the NOPD on the news. She and I had been working together anyways to deal with families, but we vowed on that day that nobody will ever find that out that way again. So NOPD will interact with those families better, will respect them. The final outcome of the investigation is what it is. That's based on the facts and policy and law, but that doesn't mean that NOPD can't treat families with respect. And she has taken that mantle up and run with it. So I just want to give her a lot of credit for that as well. And Paul, can you go to the next one? Thank you, Bonsu. So this is the kind of some of the meat and potatoes of what we do, and some of the most important work that we do, which is systemic change. So working with NOPD about policies. And so both Deputy Police Monitor Stella Cement and Acting Chief Monitor Bonsil Shokumbi have been working on different policies. A lot of these ones deal with complaint intake, which is under Stella's bailiwick, but of course you can see also use of force and tear gas policy as well, which Bonsil weighed in on. So we've had a chance to be involved in those. If you look at some of those, they're super, I mean, you look at them, they're very important ones. Search and seizure, NOPD is still not in compliance yet on stop, searches, and arrest. That's a huge policy. Sexual harassment, we've seen some sexual harassment, some workplace discrimination cases over the years. That's important to handle. And no police department is good at that, right? If you're not an employment lawyer, that's tough work. But they've listened and worked with us on that. And Stella just happens to be an employment lawyer, so that's worked out well. I'm also working on retaliation policy, disciplinary matrix, et cetera. So that's been good collaboration between us and NOPD. Achievement 7, we have completed lawsuits and claims for damages against the NOPD. We have 2 reports that we're ready to put out. We've met with the city's risk manager and worked together with him on the claims for damages. By and large, most of those are auto accidents. As a result of our interaction, the risk manager will now attend NOPD's crash review board hearings and weigh in on ways to save the city money and just bring risk manage. I think the risk manager, Eldred Morridge, has decades of experience in this field. And so being able to bring him in is huge. I think in the same way that he's impacted workers' comp, he'll also impact claims for damages. And I need to meet with Sonny LaBeouf and Deputy Chief Westbrook about lawsuits so that we can go through those. Those are a little more complicated as a part of the consent decree. NOPD is required to look at all lawsuits and make sure that there was some type of internal investigation for misconduct. So we'll meet and go through that, but those are just about ready to go out. And we're looking forward to sharing those with the city. And Paul, can you move to the next one, please? Thank you. This is just showing off a little bit. We've been busy, and we've been in a lot of conversations at our legislature, all around the country, and we again are appreciative of being a part of the conversations with the Council's Criminal Justice Committee. And so we hope to continue those in 2021, and we will be here and ready to answer any questions you may have for us. I mentioned that we've been super busy in 2021. We are set to go over all of our totals for last year. In fact, we're a little bit off this, but we have 289 or so total incidents that we've had to deal with, including complaint referrals. We've doubled the number of officers who have come to us, and the year's not over yet. So we are staying very busy. 61 disciplinary hearings. That's a lot for a little team. And our deputy police monitor and our complaint intake specialist and our contract attorney have done a great job on those first two.
Ms. Hudson, can I interrupt here and just ask a question about that? Because we've raised this issue and Councilmember Palmer is listening. This will be near and dear to her heart. One of the questions we've had repeatedly is being able to conduct these hearings in the period of COVID. So I assume that you had to do these virtually, you had to get people notice, you had to make sure that your team was available, that the evidence was available, that the witnesses were available. And I also assume that at least some of these, if not a majority of them, happened between March and the present. Is that right?
Yeah, and I'm going to tag in Deputy Police Monitor Stella Cement, who attends most of those hearings. Stella, can you talk a little bit about how they're conducted?
Yes, of course. So I do represent the Office of the Independent Police Monitor during the predisposition conferences, disciplinary hearings, and superintendent panel hearings that are conducted regarding accountability that is brought against NOPD officers. So during the time of COVID, we have continued to, under protocols to ensure safety, but we have continued to meet in person for those hearings. So I attend the Public Integrity Bureau or the NOPD headquarter hearings that are happening in person. And we're able to provide feedback and input into the deliberation process and the analysis that's happening at those hearings. But yes, it is happening in person. The NOPD is the one that is organizing and coordinating those hearings. And again, they are at this point complying with all of the public health requirements regarding COVID.
And Stella, if you know, and I hate asking you a lawyer question that you may not have the precise answer to, but when did those hearings resume after the onset of COVID? Was it summer, just recently, or did they go through pretty much the whole
June.
time?
We started in June again. So there
That's
were
great.
no hearings held in my understanding is there was no hearings held in March or April, or we did not attend any in March, April, or May. We started receiving notices at the end of May for the hearings to resume in June.
Thank you. Very helpful. I appreciate it. Sorry to interrupt.
No, we love the questions, and please keep them coming and stop me whenever you need to. But as you can see, just during that short time period, 61. So we've been busy. Stella has been busy. She's almost lived at PIB as a result of that. So great work there. You see we're up to 11 critical incidents this year. I think that's over last year. Is that correct, Bonsil?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So it's been, and the year's not over yet. Officers have come under fire, so and have had to return fire, use fire. We're not finished looking at all these investigations, and Bonsil attends the use of force review boards, reviews the cases, weighs in, talks about policy, procedures, tactics, training. But been very busy this year, and you can see there have been 9 meetings for this year so far. Bonsil also handles our criminal liaison work, and that work is where we have a member of the community come to us and say, I can't reach my investigator, or I don't know if they've done a police report, or they're victims and survivors of crime saying, I need help with police service. And so what we did was we developed this many years ago when we were still in the OIG, because if it's not clearly on its face in a complaint, we want to problem solve with NOPD. And so what we'll do is reach out to supervisors in the NOPD and see if we can work out solutions for these victims and survivors. And Bonsil, being a former assistant district attorney, of course, is very familiar with that work and has done a great job. But I don't even think you expected to have 36 so far through this year. I think that's more than we've ever had. I think that clearly either it doubles last year and it's 6-fold over what we had the years before that. So just a tremendous amount of work, and thank you for that, Bonsil. We're up to 27 mediations with still more time to go. We're hoping to beat our highest number, which I believe was 42 last year, which was a record for us. So we're continuing to do that. We would ask for the council's help in that. We know that NOPD's budget is constrained, but we've asked the chief over the last couple of years to contribute to mediation. That is a win and a time saver for a PIB. And I pay for the bulk of that, which is probably around $120,000 or so. But we need $120,000 to $150,000, and that includes full-time mediation director, training for everybody, stipends for the mediator, setting it all up, all that type of thing. But we need some help with that. If we're going to take it to the next level, I'd love to get to 100 mediations. Our community loves it, officers love it, and we think it really helps to change perspective. So any help the council can give us in that, we would love to have. Any money that could be given towards that would help. We need another full-time person, though, to be able to really reach those high levels that we want to. And then our last community outreach, COVID has really knocked that down, but because last year Bond Seal was everywhere doing Know Your Rights and Responsibilities training. This year we've had to change it up and shorten or eliminate some of those, but we're still trying to get out there when we can and be involved in virtual events as well. All right, 2021 goals. We thank the council for their help. Goal number 1 is huge. Trying to put this public facing database, all this information that we're going to be able to get about policing of children, minus any identifying information, of course, that's not public record, but all those things that are a public record, we're looking forward to sharing in these databases with our community. People, you have researchers, you have epidemiologists, you have other experts who can use this to do what they need to do. Our public defender needs access to officers' histories, etc., for Brady material. And so this is just also will provide this council with information it needs about the accountability functions in NOPD. So we're very excited about that, and we thank the council for your help in being able to get that project off the ground in 2021. Goal 2, we're going to create an external facing dashboard of our work internally. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So we're asking NOPD to put their information out there, and we're going to put ours out there as well. So we are working on a custom database that will be efficient for us because we're so small. So we want to be able to enter things once and that go to a dashboard that the community can use. So we don't want to have to have a bunch of steps in between. So we're just trying to be very efficient with that. And we're very excited about that and look forward to that coming out in 2021. We were really looking forward to expanding our audit and data capabilities. COVID, of course, impacting our budget for next year has been tough. But if OIG has any money they want to share in 2021, we'll be glad to take them up on that because we could use a full-time auditor. But in the meantime, we're going to, our complaint intake staff is trained in auditing. And if the training resumes in 2021, our use of force section will also receive audit training. So we're going to try and do as much as we can with what we have. These are some goals. Stella's working on and Bond Seal are working on finalizing and releasing our remote intake site manual, materials, and training. As you mentioned, there are a number of groups out there who are dealing with folks who are either survivors or victims of misconduct or other issues that deal with policing. And so they're going to be able to, those advocacy groups or providers will be able to work with us to get information to us. It could be commendations, it could be complaints, it could be liaison work where we're helping survivors and victims. So this is huge, and I really want to thank both of you for working on that, Stella and Bond Seal, because that's going to be huge for us. We, as small as we are really running at full speed to take the number of complaints that we're taking and commendations. So this will help us with that. Speaking of commendations, goal 5, we're looking forward to expanding our efforts to get in more commendations. Right now, a lot of the commendations that we get are from us, our staff. So that is not something that's really well known in our community. Our Quality Assurance Review Advisory Committee recommended that we put more work and manpower into that, and so, or woman power into that. So we're going to do that, and we are going to work with NOPD to be a part of their public-facing events where we can just go and set up a table and take all the commendations they that are available. And then goal 6, working with NOPD on Officer Bill of Rights. You know, some parts of the Bill of Rights impede NOPD's work. I know that Chief Westbrook has been talking to the legislature about that, and to the extent that we can help, we're going to be involved as well with our experience and any data we have. And if you could go to the next one, Paul. All right, budget. As you can see, we had a robust and nice budget for 2020. That's been impacted somewhat, but it's going to be greatly impacted next year. We are going to be, our full-time employees will all be on board with furlough, and we thank the mayor and the council for working through those matters so that folks can stay working. But that is going to cut out a lot of anything else, right? So we're not going to be able to have contractual help, which we have a lot of this year. It's going to be a lean year for us. So we're going to push as hard as we can, but we think that might impact our numbers for next year. But we're, again, are going to just work as hard as we can on that. And if you could go to the next one, Paul. And with that, I think that's the end of our presentation. Bonsil and Stella, did I forget anything? All right, and Renee, is there anything you want to weigh in on, Money Lady?
No, I think you touched on everything.
All right, thank you. And so I'll turn it back over to you, council members. Do you have any questions for us?
Thank you. Well, I saw Councilmember Williams around, and I assume that he has some questions. There you go.
Thank you, Councilmember Druso. First, Director Hudson, let me just say how impressed I am and with your stellar team. Your woman power is truly exceptional. Seriously, Renee, Stella, and Bonsil are crushing it in every way. And I know that your office has always been very nimble and use its resources wisely. And now at a time when we've got a citywide financial crunch, I think an agency like yours that has all of your team members firing on all cylinders, kind of punching above their weight, it actually provides a real opportunity for you to shine. And so let me just, before I ask any questions, just take my hat off to you and your entire team for the work product you all have been pushing out, and more specifically, what you have prioritized in the city. I think it's important that you were forward-leaning and your office was forward-leaning on a number of the things that have caused so much unrest in this country. You all were already focusing on these things, and I think that's exceptional work. My question about the public-facing discipline database, which I think is so important, is $100,000, is that allocation enough to do what you are endeavoring to do with the efficiency and speed you believe necessary?
First of all, thank you first for that. Thanks to my team. They have been amazing. We are a little family and we're working so hard. So thank you so much for that. And thank you, ladies, and our one gentleman for his hard work as well. And thank you for your help in getting this database process moving. So to answer your question, with $100,000, which is in the capital budget, we have a couple of options. We can put together something that is less user-friendly, less robust, and put that out there. What I would like to be able to do is talk to the city council about how we work going forward. That $100,000 will be perfect to get started on a robust, interactive, very easy to use system that anybody will be able to use in our city, or anybody just looking at policing would be able to use. So we want something that's super usable. And so our estimates of that is going to cost closer to $300,000, $350,000 to have something like that total. But $100,000 is a good start. We can't build it all in one, 6 months. So that's a very good start. And we would like to continue to dialogue with you if you, we'd love to hear from our community about how we do that. And we'd love to talk to you about that at further criminal justice meetings. So we'd love you to be involved. I love your dashboard, and I love what the city council has done with their dashboard, and we want something that user friendly. even I can go in there and pull up data.
And that's sort of the reason that I was asking when we were endeavoring to do that with Jeff Asher. The goal was so that whether you were 65 navigating the dashboard, whether you were a 21-year-old navigating the dashboard, there were images and graphics. So whether it's a flow chart, whether it's bars, whether it's a pie chart, everybody receives information differently, right? And frankly, it appears that the bells and whistles come with a cost, right? And so wanted to make sure that when the public first endeavors to use the database you all are creating, that it's something that they understand, so that they will go back and make a habit of using it. Because I think that sort of those sorts of habits are important, especially when we want it to be public facing. So I will gladly set up a meeting in short order so that we can talk about that, and if there's any economies of scale that we can achieve by possibly providing information for you guys in some sort of way that that shares the talent we have in doing that. We would also love to host that and have your database also be embedded in the council website, so people can touch different buttons to access the information you're providing. And maybe even, I think there's a value for something like this to even talk about publicizing in local papers, right? Whether it's once a year or just to drive traffic to what you all put together, because it's one thing to create something, it's another thing to make people aware that it exists. And I think the more the public is aware of the work that you and your team are doing, the better they're going to feel about the evolution of the office and of the police department. So just let us know about that, and we can take it up in a meeting.
Yes, sir. Will do. Thank you.
Absolutely. On the request for the help for mediation funding, absolutely. I will speak with the CAO about that. I think that's really important. You don't have a large team, so the idea of adding some more assistance so that you can do more of this work. I mean, some agencies get their budgets, they see them doubled sometimes, right? Especially in the criminal justice world. And so it's very, with no actual metrics of success. And so the idea that you all have consistently shown success each year, I think warrants the increases in budget. So I'm very thankful for your work and look forward to continue to partner with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. We love that mediation program, and everybody involved in it loves it too. So we'd love to be able, it's win for NOPD, it's win for us. We'd love to be able to, make it more available.
Do you think that the NOPD or its members rather are beginning to realize that the Office of the Independent Police Monitor truly is a friend and good for good police? Do you think the culture, there's been enough of a culture change that people realize that this review actually supports them rather than is just chastising?
Yeah, absolutely. When earlier in the conversation about OID, they talked about whistleblowers. It's not any different for police. They're worried about what will happen if they cross that line, that blue wall of silence. And so we doubled that this year. It's not a lot, but we've doubled that, and that's huge. But some of these have been huge cases over the last few years. For instance, it was a member of the department who called me on a blocked number to say, there's issues going on with the 8th District Commander. Can you look into those?
Right.
A member of the department called to talk about Officer Vic Nair and his misconduct with the child, So, and there's others who have come forward. So they know that when they come forward, the outcome, we don't care what the outcome is, as long as the process is fair, transparent, and meets certain standards. Now we will argue with NOPD about what what it means, what the facts and circumstances mean, but We don't want to argue about what the investigation looks like or how people are treated or whether the facts are gathered. That has to be just according to rules. So I think they're getting some more of that. But of course, they're a little suspicious because it's our job to hold them accountable. But
Sure.
we're trying to do more of that.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Councilmember Williams. Do any of my other colleagues have any comments or questions? All right, seeing none, and I just want permission to appropriate the word woman power from you from now on. I've struggled with how to say it before, personnel, but I think that's a great term, Susan, and I appreciate the fact that you brought it to our attention today. Congrats to you and your team. Thank you.
Thank you much.
All right, we appreciate your presentation. I think I see Judge Anderson trying to log on. Will there be anybody else from juvenile court on the call?
Yes, Gail Aldrich and Yolanda Johnson, who is our fiscal administrator.
Great.
Yolanda.
Good morning. What we're seeing on our end, Gail and Yolanda, is that you are connected, and I keep on seeing a connecting to audio for Judge Anderson. So I don't know how you all want to proceed.
Okay, Judge Anderson has a trial going on. She was on waiting, but then she had to, she pushed the trial back, but she had to go ahead on and start.
Okay.
So, you know, I'll let her know and so she can try to come in
All right.
the conversation.
Well, good morning, and the floor is yours. And if you can see, we have the PowerPoint presentation up right now. Thank you, Paul.
Okay. Just Yolanda Johnson, Yolanda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Gail?
Yeah, go on, you're on.
Okay, well, the judge was gonna start the presentation.
Okay, let me get her. Let me get her. I apologize.
No problem.
Yes, ma'am. Judge? Judge? I got the judge, I got the Zoom up. Judge? I have the Zoom up.
Okay, hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm trying to turn my video, hold on.
Okay.
Okay, so
There you go.
I know, believe it or not, I have an in-person trial today, of course, how things go.
Yeah, sorry about that, Judge. We'll try and get you through this as quickly as we can, knowing that you have an active docket.
Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take up, so are you guys ready for me now?
We are, yes, ma'am.
Oh, good, okay, I'm gonna mute this and I'm gonna just move off of the bench and I'll just be 1 second, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, I can't hear right here. Okay, hi, good morning. Thank you all.
Good morning, Chief Judge. How are you doing? Good to see you.
Wow.
Thank you for making the time while you're busy day today.
That's okay. Thank you all. We were able to have everybody step out, so it'll work out just fine. So thank you. Okay, so this morning we are presenting Orleans Parish Juvenile Courts 2021 budget presentation. So first off, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you. And obviously we're on Zoom, so this is very different. But thank you all for the opportunity of having to present our budget for 2021 Orleans Parish Juvenile Court. Good morning to all. As you all are well aware, the court, along with everyone else, has been impacted with the rest of the city by COVID-19 and the pandemic that this has presented, with the challenges of operating effectively following not only the pandemic, but as you all are all aware, in the early part of 2020 and the latter part of 2019, we actually had a cyber breach in which we had the cyber attack and had to work along with many of the other departments in the city of New Orleans to try to get back up and running. But the good thing is today we present to you a budget in a courtroom that also may look very different than it did at one time, but we are able to continue the work that we are elected to do by taking safety measures and security, and also trying to do social distancing on all of those things, but we are here and still able to do the work. So that is a blessing. We remain focused and resilient on the task of making sure that the court continue to operate and serve the youth of the families of New Orleans, even throughout the pandemic. We just like to list maybe our 2020 accomplishments. On December 13th, 2019, our operations were unexpectedly halted as a result of the cyber attack to the city of New Orleans. The court was immediately able to, with the city's assistance, formulate a plan to take necessary steps to continue to operate. This process involves securing laptops, hotspots, and printers for all court staff, and the installation of hotspots through the building for additional internet access. All sections of court and the clerk's office were able to continue the process of hearings, serving the public as case management software IGES was not on the city's server. The full costs of this to the court was in the amount of $16,631. The court also had to install new accounting software, which was QuickBooks, which was effective January 1st of 2020 due to the loss of the Microsoft software. Access from the reports from the old software became available just recently as of November of 2020, but we were able to get those available, so that's great. Ongoing challenges that we are facing due to the cyber attack is that we have 8 desktops and 7 laptops that were deemed insufficient to be reconnected to the city's server, and they had to be replaced. Our memory and hard drive needed to be upgraded, and 58 of the court's computers were used prior to the cyber attack following re-imaging of these computers. Not all staff have been given access to their email prior to the cyber attack. However, the city directly notifies the staff once the procedure has been completed, and we're even able to go back and access some old emails. We've had continued movement toward a more effective, efficient, and trauma-informed court throughout the instituting of practices directed at the fair administration and justice, access to appropriate services to promote positive outcomes and prevent unnecessary court involvement. We also maintain data-driven court programs that have successfully reduced failure to appear rates and repeat offenders among program participants. Beginning in March of 2020, we implemented necessary plans and procedures to mitigate the COVID-19 virus in the workplace. Expenses occurred for these mitigation plans and procedures have been offset through grant funding. The following steps and/or precautions have been taken at Orleans Parish Juvenile Court for services to prepare for a COVID-19 plan. We secured PPE for all staff use, which was provided to us by the city of New Orleans. In addition, we were able to sanitize our entire building through 11 sessions, of which we had deep cleaning. That was also 2 of those provided by the city of New Orleans, and also some of them that we had independently contracted. We have also been able to install plexiglass units throughout the courthouse, in the courtrooms, in sections, also in the clerk's office, and also able to maintain safe distancing by removing some of the chairs and sitting spaces available in the courtroom, and to also reconfigure access and the amount of people that are allowed to be in the building at any one given time. We've also installed temperature and face recognition portals at public and employee entrances. We have deemed only 2 entrances that are available for everyone to enter into, and every person upon entering must go through a list of questions as well as to be temperature screened, in addition to wearing a band prior to their being allowed to be into the building. We have made available periodic COVID-19 testing on site and are in the process of requesting to have that testing on site done again. In addition to that, we have obtained Zoom licenses in order for the court to conduct virtual hearings, and the installation of what we call a Zoom room to enable parents and guardians without internet access to safely participate in all court proceedings and hearings. As a result of all of the above, OPJC has remained fully operational with all staff in attendance, and we are currently hearing in court proceedings. Following are some of the pictures of plexiglass installation, and I think that should be part of the, okay. So these are just some of the pictures of some of the measures that we have taken. This is obviously the picture of the plexiglass that's put up in some of the areas, as well as our face recognition temperature controls. In addition to that, throughout this process, we have secured a grant to open a calming studio at the court. This is a second studio of its kind in the state of Louisiana, and it has been dedicated and named the Ernestine S. Gray Calming Studio. And as many of you all know, at the end of 2020, obviously Judge Gray will have completed her 36 wonderful years of service here at the court. This Calming Studio is an idea that was conceptualized by Judge Gray many years ago, some thoughts she had, and then we were actually able to dedicate this building, which is a unique concept that will provide a therapeutic atmosphere for children and youth that are involved in hearings at the Orleans Parish Juvenile Court. It is a designated space where children can learn various coping skills that will allow them to diminish any stress or trauma associated with the youth's participation in court proceedings. And if we'll just move to that slide, and you can see the pictures of the Calming Studio. That's more of the plexiglass in the courthouse. Some of the courtrooms, as you all can see, have been equipped with plexiglass for safe measures while in court. Those are the office space that have all had the plexiglass as well. And then we'll move on to the slide. Okay, and these are the pictures of the Calming Studio. So we actually had the front part of it has been painted where it's been dedicated with symbols that remains important to Judge Gray. In addition to that, a quote that came from Judge Gray: "This is a safe space, explore, have fun, or just be." Judge Ernestine S. Gray. And you can see some of the pictures of the Calming Studio. Also, one of our accomplishments this year is that, as many of you all are all aware, every year the Orleans Parish Juvenile Court hosts a Juvenile Justice Awareness Day. This day, as you were aware, we were not able to host it normally when we do in August because of COVID-19 restrictions. However, we were able to operate it this year, and we actually did it as a trunk or treat. So we also want to thank the City of New Orleans that even without power, we were able to conduct our hearing because we were able to plug into the generators with our partners at the Juvenile Justice Intervention Center. So again, continuing to work together where we were able to have enough power, we could host this wonderful event for the kids. So you can see some of the pictures. This is an event that Orleans Parish Juvenile Court has hosted for the past 5 years. We have partnered with Aetna, Total Community Action, TCA, and also local community organizations and nonprofits to put on Juvenile Justice Awareness Day. It is a school supply and school equipment giveaway to both court-involved youth and non-court-involved youth in the city of New Orleans. We also had Tanya Boyd Cannon, who emceed, sang. We also had families that dressed alike. In fact, next year, we're going to do this again, and we're going to actually have a whole entire family contest for the best Halloween costume. So if you want to start thinking about ideas, please come out and join us next year. The program has grown over the years to provide school supplies to over 350 youth in the city of New Orleans, and we also do a laptop giveaway. So it's a great time for all. And the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic did not prevent us from operating this yearly activity. And following are some of the many pictures that you have seen at the event. As previously stated, the pandemic resulted in the court having to make dramatic changes in the day-to-day operations of the court. In the beginning, due to the uncertainty and all of the unknowns surrounding this pandemic, the court had to cease operations for a number of days. Staff were instructed to work remotely in the beginning, and the judges, along with essential personnel, returned to the office to begin the process of transforming the workplace to adhere to COVID-19 mandates. As you can see, the 2019 versus 2020 new cases filed, the pandemic affected the number of cases filed in 2020. However, even taken into consideration, the court is estimated to be at 90% of the 2019 filings. Orleans Parish Juvenile Court intake, the number of intake cases were also affected by the pandemic, as is evident during the second quarter of the year, which reflects a decrease. The number of participants in OPJC programs from January to August, the program staff of the court was also instructed to continue to reach out to the youth in their respective programs via telephone and Zoom conferencing as a result of the pandemic. At no time did Orleans Parish Juvenile Court take a break in programming services. In 2021, our list of department goals will be to, number one, analyze practices and procedures and the results of existing court processes and identify improvement opportunities. Number two, keep abreast of the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic to continue to promote a safe and effective workplace. Number three, continue to share our experiences with system shareholders, the community, and other juvenile courts. Number four, continue to work to ensure that all youth charged in the Orleans Parish Juvenile Court have qualified and competent legal representation. Number five, work to ensure that crime victims have access to all phases of the juvenile justice court process and receive all services to which they are entitled to by law. Number six, work to ensure that the judiciary, the court staff, and all system participants are both individually trained and trained across systems and roles. Number seven, explore additional funding resources to ensure the continuation and expansion of all court programs. Also attached, you will see our 2021 budget requests. Okay, our 2020 approved budget for the court was $2,857,531. The mandate of the 20% across the board cuts have resulted in the proposed budget for 2021 in the amount of $2,159,788. This is the most significant reduction in the court's budget from the last 3 years, with the reduction gravely affecting other operating expenses. In summary, our fiscal year 2020 on behalf salaries for 29 full-time employees, $1,890,905. For the fiscal year of 2021, on behalf salaries for 29 full-time employees, total reduction in funding, $205,751. In 2020, other operating expenses, our RRSC program department for 18 individuals, total for program staff and benefits, $739,064. Total for the program staff and benefits for 6 individuals, and the total reduction in funding will result in $279,524. Our 2020 other operating, contracting, and operating expenses, our total budget for 2020 was $227,562. Our total budget for 2021 is $195,110. This proposed total budget reduction to the 2021 budget will result in $697,743. In summary, if we reduce by the 20% mandated reduction from the City of New Orleans, this is a reduction of $571,506. Also, our employees will be furloughed and will take a 10% reduction to city employees through 12/31 of 2020, which will make that $126,237, which this total reduction is 24.41% of a total reduction. As a result of the 20% mandate across the board and the reduction in the funding of the court's programs will be what is hardest hit. Needless to say, these programs are needed in order for this court to be able to serve the youth and families in the city of New Orleans. We have begun to implement working across the board with other programs that also exist in the city of New Orleans, including some that I'm sure have been presented to you by other players that were also working in the city of New Orleans and have also presented their budget. We continue to be a court that will work in conjunction and with programs that exist, and we have been able to implement and provide our budget to you for 2021 with the necessary reductions in furlough costs. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation. First, let me see if any of my colleagues have any comments or questions. Judge.
Councilman Druso?
Yes, Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you. I do. Candace, Judge Bates, I just want to thank you for your work on the Early Reporting Center. We've really heard how instrumental you've been with that, and that the results have really proven more than what we expected so early out. And so I just want to thank you for your commitment to that.
Okay, thank you all. Yes, we've been working with ERC, and there's also a new program that we've been working with the Juvenile Justice Intervention Center. I'm sure that they've talked a little bit about that in their presentation. But again, while we're looking at these cuts across the board, you know, we've decided that we're going to look at 2021 as a year of collaboration. So we will continue to work to collaborate with other agencies that are also providing services to our youth. So thank you all very much.
And thank you for your willingness. We know and we appreciate how hard this budget season is. And for y'all to participate in this, we really appreciate it. I think it's going to make us all, it'll at least allow us to continue operations and not to have as much disruption as would have been possible if we didn't do these proactive measures. So thank you for participating in that. I think we all appreciate that. And then how we've heard, you know, with other courts that they're doing, how is that working with you with virtual? You know, we've had some really good feedback that actually that COVID has actually created through video conferencing, through video court proceedings. You know, it actually can help families, you know, in terms of time and spend, like with transportation issues and other things. Are y'all finding that effective as well?
Oh, I would totally agree. I'm finding it very effective. We're doing pretty much all of our appearances to answer by Zoom. We're doing a lot of our pretrial hearings by Zoom. We're also doing a lot of our OJJ reviews. So once a child is already on probation or in placement, by Zoom. The only thing that's still being mandated that we're doing in person have been some of the trials. Some of the attorneys actually are requesting and requiring that the trials actually take place in person. Some of the hearings, sometimes we realize if it's more of a serious nature, there are a lot of documents that possibly need to be introduced. Those are in person, but we have done a great deal by Zoom. I will say that first off, it is very beneficial to the kids because obviously they're missing a lot less of school or also time to be engaged into the community. But the kids that we need to see, we're able to get in. In addition to that, the kids that we can move through this system, as many of you all are very well aware, we have kids that come in on some of the lower level of offenses, but obviously those have to go through the system as well. So there's an opportunity that, you know, if a kid just made a mistake and did something that really was not such a great idea and it resulted in them coming in front of the court, we're able to move them out. We're able to see them in their own environment, which I think has been very beneficial. A lot less stress on the parents, stress on the grandparents. The flip side is that obviously there's some of the kids that need to be seen, but I think the lawyers as well as the judge, I think this collaboration effort, I have to say, you know, on behalf of Louisiana Center for Children's Rights, as well as with the District Attorney's Office, that we've really all tried to work together. And so what this has done is that, you know, when we realize there are some kids that maybe need to come in or we need to see for certain reasons, that we're able to do that and still take certain safety measures. But at the same time, those that we can still provide the same objective, we're finding that this has really been really a step in a good direction. So while we don't want a pandemic to bring about these changes, I believe that it's something that's been beneficial to all. And we're seeing some better outcomes for some of the kids as well.
We've talked to other agencies and groups about potentially having like Zoom rooms in libraries, like regional libraries. Do you think that for people that don't have access, to internet or what have you, do you think something like that would be helpful for your clients that don't have internet access?
Oh, I think that's a great idea, because number one, I mean, even if some of them have access, if they don't have the ability to pay for the internet, if they don't have the ability to the phone, or if you've got a mom that may have access, but then she's got to go to work, we're not wanting to see the moms leave work to go back to the house because the kids are on virtual learning and they need to have access to get on. So that would certainly be beneficial. And two, as you all are aware, we've used the libraries for some of our programs as well. So the kids are familiar with the libraries and they know how to get there. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with encouraging somebody to, hey, maybe pick up a book while they're there. And maybe even the idea of Zoom rooms in different areas throughout the city, so that the kids do have access. But we do have a Zoom room here and it has been very beneficial. And so I would totally support that.
Great. Okay, good to know. That's pretty much it. Oh, also, are y'all, I know that isn't there supposed to be like one judge seat eliminated with the departure of Judge Gray and Doherty? Is that still happening?
Well, so far there's two that obviously are on the ballot that are going to.
So that's not happening.
So yeah, I mean, there are two judgeships on the ballot currently.
So we just have to wait for the next one to be eliminated?
I really don't, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. There's all kinds of questions about that legislation. So I've just been deferring to the Secretary of State. So all I know is that I have been reelected and I will continue to serve these great children and all of you in the city of New Orleans.
And we are glad that you were, Judge. So again, thank you very much for your service. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Councilmember Palmer. Councilmember Nguyen?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Giarrusso. Hey, good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, great seeing you guys. I just have a question in reference. I'm looking at all the programs that you guys have for the kids there, and it looks like it's expiring on March of 2021. Do you guys anticipate those grants to be renewed?
Yes, we're hopeful that the grants will be renewed. We are still in the process, obviously, of writing those grants and continuing to look for additional funding, but we are hopeful that the grants will be renewed.
And do you guys renewed this grant in the past before?
Yes, we have. So we.
Okay, was there a gap at all in reference to funding?
Okay, so I'm going to defer to Ms. Johnson. So that's our fiscal administrator. She can answer all those questions.
What was that question?
If there was going to be a gap in reference to the renewal.
We're hoping there won't be a gap in the renewal.
Has there been a gap before in the past?
No, there hasn't.
Okay, all right. And how these programs have been operating in reference to with COVID-19? Are they using virtual?
Yeah. So what we started doing, so actually ODAP now, since some of the restrictions have eased, that ODAP has been going to the children doing the visits, but what we've been doing is a lot of Zoom meetings. We've been doing telephone contact, meeting outside, meeting at parks, going to the children's homes and perhaps having them come out, and the advocate meeting further down. Our Grow coordinator has actually created a software that she uses where she actually uses the virtual trainings where she's actually having the kids meet with her virtually, as well as Mello. And Mello is actually, we just recently received our equipment where soon you will be seeing t-shirts coming near you that will be created by the kids through Mello. So we are continuing to work and do the work as we can socially distant.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Councilmember Nguyen. Anybody else? Well, that sounds like a no. We appreciate your time and like I said, Judge, getting off the bench and making yourself and your team available to answer these questions. We know these cuts aren't easy, and it's particularly hard when it directly affects people, but we appreciate the stewardship that you have to try and make it as painless as possible.
Yes, and we've been talking to our staff. They're fully well aware. We've been having meetings, discussing them. I mean, everybody's aware of what we're going through. And I think at this time, we're just grateful to continue to do the work. And we're hopeful that, we will move out of this pandemic and we'll be able to go back to how things were before. But we are trying to work with everyone so that we can just maintain and continue to perform and do what's expected. So thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the presentations this morning. Mr. Harang, do we have any public comments?
No public comments today, Councilman.
No public comments. Well, thank you. All right. Well, I want to thank all of my colleagues for all of their work. I know Councilmember Brissett would say this if he weren't here, but this is the most important thing the council does. This is our chief power to appropriate. And in this instance, it becomes even more significant knowing that there are so many cuts that have to be made, and asking the questions about how those are going to work, not only theoretically, but practically, and also asking other important, significant, substantive questions about how departments operate. You saw the engagement, I think, by so many who don't sit on the budget committee about the importance of this. And just like to thank everybody for all of their hard work and rolling up their sleeves for the last 7 days and making almost full days out of this from start to finish. So thanks to all of you for your hard work. It's appreciated. Colleagues, does anybody have any closing comments? And if not, I'll move to adjourn, but I just want to see if anybody has anything they wanted to say.
I'll second.
All right, second by Councilmember Palmer. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's 4 yeas, and we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much for being here. Take care.